To get more insight, we can speak now to the Director of Ecosystems Division of UN Environment Programme, former senior official at the US State Department's Bureau of Oceans, Susan Gardner. Thanks so much for your time and joining us from Nice. Can I start by asking you simply, what happens if we don't do anything about the global ocean? Where are we headed? What will they become?
Well, your report was very clear. We have true concerns in terms of record climate change that is showing up as temperature increases every year. We've seen that more than a third of fish stocks are already overexploited. We've seen pollution that's choking out species and actually getting into food chains and affecting our health of people that rely on the protein from this ocean. So we know there's real reason for concern. That's why at this conference, this year we're having record numbers of people coming together to put their heads together and solve these problems.
Record numbers of people coming together. I believe heads of state of some 60 different countries are coming. However, a notable absentee is the United States. And, we've seen from the United States, and Donald Trump even, he wants to fast-track seabed mining. Is any of this useful if such a major country is not taking part?
Well, the world has come together on a number of commitments that are the roadmap for the solutions. So under the Convention on Biological Diversity, countries came together and agreed that we need to designate 30% of the world's land and sea as protected areas. Under the agreement for the High Seas Treaty, on biological diversity beyond national jurisdiction, we also agreed that we have to do this in the high seas. And this is because we understand that the ocean belongs to everyone. No one has exclusive rights to any of our resources. We all have to work together on the solutions. We've all contributed to the problems. And so coming together here in Nice this week, you're seeing private sector and you're seeing scientists, you're seeing governments, and you're seeing NGOs, everyone coming together and saying, okay, let's work together to solve these problems because we have the solutions and we have to make sure that we're moving from our commitments into action.
Okay, and those actions, I imagine, though, even if there's a will, one has to find the financial way. Is that going to come? Are the private sector willing to step up the funds? Are governments willing to put the money where their mouths is?
Well, we've had a lot of conversations about sustaining a blue economy over the weekend in preparation for this week. And we've heard a lot of private sector. We've heard financial institutions and banks coming together and saying, yeah, actually, the capital exists. Private sector is asking for market signals from governments and policies. They're asking for investment in science that shows us the innovation that gets us there. But we are seeing and we're hearing private sector saying, yeah, we're all part of the solution. We can do this together. And that we know that as part of the commitments that countries made under the Global Biodiversity Framework, we've agreed to transition $500 billion per year in subsidies that are available now that are too often going towards destructive practices that actually harm the environment. Transitioning those, repurposing those for things that actually is going to help everyone and heal the ocean. So there is real promise and there are solutions. It's just a matter of putting our heads together and starting to move in that direction.
You sound like you are holding out that hope, despite, as you say, the negative practices, the wars that are being increasingly waged, the rockets that are being dropped into our ocean. You still think the world has time and a sufficient commitment to turn the tide?
Well, what we heard this weekend from the Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean, Ambassador Peter Thompson, is that it's time to get to action. We know what we need to do, and it's time to do the right thing. We heard from the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, whose country is threatened to be 95% underwater by the end of this century. It's time to act. We don't have a choice. This is about the heritage and the identity of countries and people. This is about our own survival. So it's not an option. Yes, there's so many crises. Yes, the news is full of problems that don't have solutions. But the conversations this week are people coming together to say, let's take the solutions we have and move forward with concrete progress, because we can do this. We have to do this. The ocean, as your video was showing, it actually provides so many benefits for people, for nature, for climate, for livelihoods, for food security. And we can do this when we put the right incentives in place to enable this movement in the right direction.
Indeed, where there's a will, there's generally a way. But one of the biggest problems when it comes to the oceans is the plastic pollution. I mean, there was even, it's described as a new continent of plastic there floating in our oceans. Where are we on that? What's the latest? How have we advanced in tackling that particular problem?
Well, the world has been negotiating. Through negotiation meetings, there will be another one later this year, coming forward to say, okay, these are the steps we all agree to take. And there's a number of places where there is agreement, and there's a number of places where we're still working through the details on how far the world is going to take in terms of ambition. But there is agreement that we have science. There is agreement that there are solutions. There's a lot of conversations about what is an unnecessary single-use plastic that the world doesn't need anymore. And we see so many examples of national action. In the country where I live, in Kenya, which is the headquarters of the UN Environment Program, Kenya banned plastic bags and said, we're not going to do this anymore. It's destroying the environment, and we have alternatives. And that happened. And it's supported very, very well by the public. And so we see so many examples across Europe and across other countries that have shown that with progress, with information, with political will, there's a lot of solutions out there. And we're going to hear from countries this year exactly how far they're willing to go.
Susan Gardner of the UN Environment Programme, thanks very much indeed for your time and joining us here on France 24.